In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you how to master the brand new F1 2025 physics, breaking it down into 3 segments of the video. So, with that being said, let's hit the track and straight into the action. You join me on track now as I'm going to be teaching you how to master the brand new physics with an F1 25, going through the braking zone, mid-corner phase and exit phase of the corner as well, teaching you each nuanced detail to maximize your performance. The first part of the video is going to be focused on the braking zone. There's a lot more braking stability compared to F1 24. In F1 24, it was quite easy to lock the inside front tyre when arriving to the corner, whereas F1 25 has a better stability over the front axle. This means you can trail brake better, more efficiently, and have more confidence while going into the corner. Typically, you're going to be looking for about 52 to 54% braking bias on most corners around the track and most corners around the circuit as well. Probably peaking around 56% and minimal at 51 depending on the corner type. But as a standard sort of rule of thumb, I would recommend taking between 52 and 54 as a starting numbers to go by. Of course, your braking zone is going to be changing corner by corner, grip by grip, and car by car if you're in the career mode series as well. But I'm going to be giving you some basic rules that you can be following on how you can maximize your potential. If you look to the halo on the car right now, you can see my brake inputs and my throttle inputs, that the red is indicating the brake. Of course, the throttle is indicating by the green. So as you're arriving towards the braking zone, you really want to maximize your trail braking efficiency. Trail braking is where you hit the brake pedal hard at the start of the braking zone and then trail off it slowly as you get close and closer to the corner. We're going to go through examples of that right now around the Australia circuit. The reason I picked Australia is it's really good for highlighting the brand new physics of the game, but also it's a lot of people's first track in career mode, so if you can be getting an early head start on the AI and getting confidence with a new game, I think is a good track to be doing this video on, as we've invalidated that's not ideal. But if you watch my brake input as I'm going through these corners on the F1 25 game, I go into the apex and I'll hit a brake threshold point with my percentage and then release it slowly as I get towards the corner. Of course, the harder you can press it without locking up is the ideal situation, as you get more braking pressure, more braking efficiency, and you'll be slowing down faster going into the corner. What is critical though is quite simply hit the brake pressure, get a high peak on it, and then release it slowly into the corner, and you should be at 0% brake pressure as you reach the clipping point of the apex. The clipping point is quite simply where your tyre meets the apex curbstone. For example here, the clipping point is in the middle of the corner, and then you're going to see it playing out time and time again as you get towards the first turn here and throughout the first sector of Australia. Going through the corner right now, peak pressure, release off 0% at the apex curbstone, and that's how you can really nicely get through the braking phase in F1 24. F1 25, my apologies. Still old habits die hard. If you're looking at changing your braking bias within the F1 25 game, see, got it right this time, then you're going to be looking to understand what tyre is the limitation. For example, if we put the brake pressure too high, and now we're going to put it to 64%, just as an example. Of course, this is very exaggerated, and realistically you would never go to 64%, but it's just a good example nevertheless. You can see we lock up the front tyres very easily and slide up to the outside wall. Whereas if we start putting the braking pressure too low, we're going to go through the chicane, and on the exit of the chicane we'll stamp on the brake pressure once we've got some speed back up, and you're going to see the car is going to lose control and then spin around in a circle. So obviously if your brake pressure is too low, i.e. nearer 50%, then you're going to have a rear limitation and the rear of the car is going to be unsettled. If you have it too high, the front tyres are going to be the limitation and you're going to suffer front tyre lockups, and it's going to be limited performance and confidence as you're trying to learn a new game. So if you are having that rear instability, how it can be showing like here, trying to fight the car going into the apex, put up the braking pressure higher by 2% and then try to understand how the car feels. If that solves your problem, then it's a good change that you've done. If you then end up with front locking, just go back by 1% on the braking bias, and the opposite is true if you have front tyre locking. If you're going into the corner and you have your front tyres locking, then go back by 2%, as that's normally a good rule of thumb to do. As you can see, we had a big lock up there. And then if you end up with some rear locking, just marginally move it forward by 1%. The reason I say do it in 2% incremental changes at the start of the game, as it's much easier to feel a big change within 2%, whereas in 1% you can feel a change, but it's not going to be that easy. It's better to jump too far in some instances than bring it back, rather than do loads of small changes and quite never find the direction that you're looking for. When you're learning a new game physics, a new car, a new game even, it is all about just understanding as much data as you can and processing as much change as you can, and that's again why I just bring it back to doing the 2% changes rather than 1, because it gives you more data to be learning from and data to be working with inside your brain and your learning capabilities. Moving on from the braking phase of the corner, we're going to be looking at the mid-corner phase. So this is really important within F125, I found, and that's to be smooth on the steering wheel, especially in online mode, career mode, GP mode, anywhere that the tyre temperatures and tyre wear is enabled, you want to be super smooth. In time trial, you can be a little bit more aggressive on the steering and do the steering wheel flick that you saw in F124. I personally don't believe it's faster, at least for my driving style. I found no situation that I'm actually gaining from doing it. It's okay, but it's not faster. You know, I find myself better and quicker and more confident when doing a smooth progressing on the steering wheel. If you look towards the center of your screen right now, you're going to see me just doing very smooth inputs, going into the corner, generating the grip, doing the weight transfer correctly, and this is what I found to be the most successful formula for me on F125 so far, and additionally it has much better positive effects to tyre temperature and tyre wear during your stint, meaning that you gain advantages as the stint progresses rather than being too harsh and degrading your tyres too quickly. In high speed corners and in medium speed corners, it is very simple in a good way. To be honest, it's very detailed, that you can feel how the car is moving around underneath you, and it is just about being smooth on the steering wheel input. Going towards the replay mode of the game right now, you can see going through turn 1, if we can get this menu off the screen, please. Can we go away? How do I get this away? Why is that not going away? Anyway, there we go, we got it away. If you look at my steering wheel inputs, it's just very smooth into the corner, out of the corner again, and that means that you can be generating as much weight transfer grip as possible. Weight transfers when you put the weight of the car to the outside tyres, and that's what's going to be giving you the grip to go around the corner. The more weight you can effectively put on the outside tyres, the more grip that you have, and that's just a very simple explanation that I'll go further in detail to in a future video, but I want this to be an initial video about F125, learning the handling model, learning the physics, and then we'll go more in depth in a future video. So, like I say, just all about being super smooth on the steering wheel in high speed and medium speed corners especially, and then we're going to go into detail about low speed corners in just a second. So you can see that is very lovely going through turn 1 here, Australia, and that's a good corner to be practicing, to be smooth on. As you arrive to lower speed corners, it is very important to be patient on the throttle, because when you do pick up the throttle on F125, it has a weight transfer that goes towards the rear axle. We're going to go back in replay camera, and we're going to show you in the third person view as well, going through these corners. So do that, get rid of the screen. I've learned how to do it now. Lovely jubbly. Hit the action. So as you're going through the corner, if you're too early on the power in F125 right now, you're going to see that you pick up bucket loads of understeer, and it's going to be compromising your lap time potential quite a lot. So it's really important that you're patient to get back to the power. As you see, as soon as we start picking up the throttle here, it's a very nuanced detail, but as soon as you start picking up the throttle, the weight transfer is going to go towards the rear tires, and it's going to be making a little bit of understeer, unless you're getting wheel spin, of course, and it'll make oversteer. But providing you get on the power correctly, it's going to put the weight transfer to the rear tires, give you more grip, but of course the weight transfers on the rear tires would mean the front tires don't have as much grip anymore, and that can be leading to understeer. That's just something to think about on a very advanced level. Again, we'll cover that in a future video, but in an entry level thing, just remember to be careful on the power. And a good rule of thumb is, once you can be confident to progress from 0 to 100% power smoothly in a gradual line and a gradual curve, basically, with your throttle application, that is about the right time to get on the power. You don't want to be tabletopping. I call it tabletopping when you get on the power and then you have to hang like 10-20% for 1 or 2 seconds, waiting for the car to stop understeering. If we go back on board here just for a second, you can see that we got on the throttle in a really nice way here. Quite simply because I was able to progress to 100% power very smoothly, and I didn't suffer that much understeer on the exit. I was able to get my racing line appropriately back to the right hand side to open up the next left-hander, and it was lovely, lovely jubbly. What would happen if I went too early on the power right now? We're going to show you in this instance. Just need to find the right button. I don't have my replay mode, so I need to do F1. There we go, F1, lovely jubbly. You're going to see now, if we get on the power too early, you're going to see we're just going to understeer very wide. It was a little bit wider of our apex compared to the previous lap, but still you can see the example holds true that we got on the power roughly the same time. Again, about a tyre width wider than we were the lap before, so take that into consideration. But you can see we got on the power too early, and it just meant that we understeered towards the outside of the corner, and we met the barrier. Not ideal. So it's all about just being patient, and once you know you can go from 0% throttle to 100% in a gradual smooth curve and an application, then is the right time to get back to the power. Rule of thumb, key point, do not overstress the car in the middle of the corner, otherwise you'll end up with loads of understeer on the exit and compromising lap time massively. In modes that you do have tyre temperature, tyre wear enabled, quite simply that's going to exaggerate your tyre temperature, exaggerate your tyre wear as well, and lead to disastrous race pace towards the end of the stint. So that's braking. That's mid-corner covered already in this entry video to the physics on F125. Now we're going to go into the corner exit. To be honest, the corner exit's very simple in a nice way. Again, that is just about applying the throttle and using up as much of the track width possible. Again, it's building on from that understeer concept that we saw in the middle of the corner. Providing you can get on the power very smoothly, very nicely, then you can just run the car to the outside of the track and use the optimal racing line. Again, if you're too hard on the power, you will get wheel spin and you will be sliding around like that. Thank you to the wall for correcting my slide. That is, again, very, very nice. So, something that you do have to be careful with, though, when you're upshifting, there is a bit of a kick of weight transfer. Not really weight transfer, but you get a bit of a kick of a power jolt when you go up through the gear. Again, it is somewhat realistic, you know, because when you do upshift in real life, there is a bit of jolt of energy that goes through the gearbox, through the differential, etc. I'm not a real life mechanic. I'm not a real life driver, so probably someone else can do a better definition than I can, in all honesty. I just know the effect that it has in F125, and when you do upshift, it will be having a small weight transfer moment within the gearbox, and will be shifting the weight of the car around a little bit. How is that going to affect you? In a straight line acceleration, not that much, in all honesty. It won't really have an effect. But when you are turning and accelerating at the same time, i.e. the final two corners here at Australia, it can be useful to engage the following gear before you start committing to the next turn-in zone of the track. So getting back to these corners right now, we're going to go down into third, and then we're going to do 2 examples through here. Short shift to fourth before the final corner, and then you can see the car is very balanced in a very nice way. And now we're going to do replay mode, and we're going to be basically short shifting up to fourth in the corner, and it's going to be showing how much the car can be unsettled because of this. Going through the final complexes to build up the speed, build up momentum, and get back in the flow down into third gear, hit a nice racing line. As you can see now, we're going to be upshifting to fourth in the middle, and it can be making a bit of an oversteer in that situation. In that example, it was a bit more than an oversteer, but it's just something to be remembering and taking into consideration, that if you're having these snaps of oversteer and the car is becoming unsettled as you're going through the corner, think about your gear choices and be short shifting to the following gear earlier when you're in a straight line, i.e. here, because the car is straighter, the platform is more predictable, and you're not going to have those rough snaps of oversteer, comparing to if you upshift later in the corner, i.e. here. You can see we pull fourth gear as we're turning in, go into cockpit camera if we can, lovely jubbly. So you can see at the bottom of the screen the gear. So as soon as we pull fourth gear, we have a weight transfer through the gearbox of the car, just a very minute one, but a minute one is enough to unsettle the car and send us with a traction loss on the rear axle and spinning towards the wall. So that's been an introduction on how to master the physics on F125, covering the braking zone, the mid-corner, and the exit of the corner as well on Australia, as I think this will be a lot of people's first tracks, especially as they tackle the career mode features of the game. So there we go, that's the initial video on how to master the brand new physics on F1 2025 done and dusted. I'll be doing follow-up videos to break down the nuanced details of curb usage, gear usage, braking, throttle, and every little detail to extrapolate maximum performance going forward through this year's game cycle. I'm looking forward to making those videos. I've been Brendon Leigh. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you're enjoying F1 25 as well. I'll catch you in the next video. Grazie, ciao ciao, bye bye.